You didn't find this video by accident. I want you to understand that from the very first second you press play. The algorithm didn't bring you here. Chance didn't bring you here. There is something far more intentional at work, and if you'll stay with me, you'll understand exactly why. Right now, in this moment, you are carrying something heavy. I can feel it through the screen. It's not just tiredness, though you are tired. It's not just sadness, though there is grief in you. It's something deeper, something that lives in the quiet spaces between one breath and the next. It's the weight of your own history. The things you did that you cannot undo. The words you said that you cannot take back. The choices you made in a season of weakness, in a moment of desperation, in a time when you didn't know better, or perhaps when you did know better and still chose wrong. Those moments, those specific, sharp-edged moments, they are still with you, aren't they? Type yes in the comments right now if you are carrying something from your past that still follows you into your present. Because I want you to know, I see you. Not the version of you that you present to the world. Not the composed, functioning, managing version. I see the one underneath. The one who sometimes wonders, am I too far gone? Have I used up my grace? Has God turned away from me because of what I've done? That question, that specific, terrifying question, that is why you are here today. And I am going to answer it, but not the way you expect. Not with a list of scriptures delivered coldly. Not with a lecture. Not with the kind of Christian content that makes you feel worse when you turn it off than when you turned it on. I'm going to answer it the way a father answers a child who comes home broken. With the truth and with love. Stay with me, because what I'm going to share with you in the next hour, it's not just information. It's not just theology. It is a word that has been prepared specifically for the season you are in right now. And I promise you, by the time we finish, something inside you will shift. But first, I need you to be honest with me and with yourself. Let me describe something to you. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You wake up in the morning and for about 3 seconds, you're okay. 3 seconds of blankness, of just existing before the day lands on you. And then it comes, the remembering. Maybe it's a relationship you destroyed, a person you hurt who never fully forgave you, or who forgave you, but things were never the same. Maybe it's a financial decision that cost your family everything. Maybe it's an addiction that took years from your life, years you can never reclaim. Maybe it's a child you failed, a parent you disappointed, a marriage you watched fall apart. Maybe it's something you did in secret, something no one knows about except you and God. And you've carried it alone, in silence, for so long that silence itself has started to feel like a prison. Does that sound familiar? If it does, type, I hear you in the comments. Not for me, for yourself, as a small act of honesty. Because here is what I've noticed. People who carry deep regret, they develop a very specific posture toward their own future. They stop expecting good things. They stop believing they deserve good things. They quietly, without even realizing it, begin to disqualify themselves. Someone offers them an opportunity, and something inside them whispers, "You don't deserve that." Someone shows them love, and they think, "If they knew what I've done, they'd leave." God opens a door, and they stand at the threshold, frozen, thinking, "I'm not worthy to walk through that." And so they sabotage, or they refuse, or they simply stand still while their future waits on the other side of a threshold they're too afraid to cross. Do you know what the enemy's greatest weapon against you is not? It's not the sin itself. It's not the mistake itself. It's the memory of it. The story you tell yourself about what that mistake means. Because the enemy knows, if he can make you believe that your past has already determined your future, he doesn't need to do anything else. You'll imprison yourself. You'll be your own jailer. And here's the devastating part. You'll do it while calling it humility, while calling it being realistic, while calling it knowing your place. But I need to tell you something today that will challenge everything you've been told. Your past is not your sentence. It is not the final word on who you are. And God, the God who formed you before you drew your first breath, who knew every mistake you would ever make and chose you anyway, God has not closed the door on you. He has not. Stay with me, because I need to show you something in this story that will change everything. I want to tell you about a woman named Miriam. Not the Miriam from Numbers, though we will get there. I want to tell you about a woman I'll call Miriam, because her story is so common that she could be any one of us. Miriam grew up in a home that looked good from the outside. Sunday mornings, church clothes, the whole picture. But behind closed doors, there was damage. There was anger and control and the kind of silence that isn't peace. It's just suppressed war. And Miriam learned early that love was conditional, that she would have to earn it, perform for it, shrink for it. So she grew up carrying a belief she never chose to hold. I have to be perfect to be loved, and I am never perfect enough. She carried that belief into her 20s, into relationships where she gave everything and received very little, into decisions made from desperation, not wisdom, into years where she tried to numb the ache of feeling fundamentally broken by doing things she now wishes she could forget. By the time she was 35, she had a list, not written on paper, written on her heart. The relationship she ended badly, the pregnancy she terminated when she was 22 and couldn't see another way, the marriage she entered for the wrong reasons and left in flames, the friendship she burned because her trauma was louder than her love, the years she spent far from God, telling herself he probably didn't want her back anyway. That was her list, and she recited it every time something good approached her life. Every time a new beginning presented itself, she would pull out that mental list like a receipt, and she would read it to herself like evidence. See, this is why you don't get the good thing. This is why you have to stay small. This is the cost of who you've been. Can I ask you something directly? Do you have a list like Miriam's? Not her list, your list. The private inventory of your failures, your regrets, your can't take it backs. Type "I have a list" if you do, because I want you to see something today that Miriam finally saw when she was 41 years old, sitting alone in her apartment on a Tuesday night, completely out of options, with nothing left to offer God except the ruins of herself. She opened her Bible, not with faith, she barely had any left, with exhaustion. And the page fell open, and she read these words from Isaiah 43. Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Do not remember the former things. She read it 3 times, and then she started to cry. Not the polite, composed kind of crying, the kind that comes from somewhere so deep it frightens you. Because for the first time, she heard it differently. She heard it not as a general principle for general people. She heard it as a direct instruction. God was not asking her to pretend the past didn't happen. He was not asking her to gaslight herself into cheerfulness. He was saying something far more radical. I am doing something new in you, right now. And the reason you cannot see it is because you keep looking backward. And then she understood something that shifted everything. Your past is not the most important thing about you to God. Your present, this moment, right now, where you are, is where He is working. And your future, the one He has been building while you've been staring at your failures, is still intact. Stay with me, because there are specific things, 7 specific things, that God does for people who are carrying exactly what you are carrying. And you need to hear all 7, especially the 5th one. The 5th one is the one most people never hear, and it is the one that will undo everything the enemy has built inside you. Don't go anywhere. The 7 things God does for people who carry the weight of their past. Number 1, God redeems the time, not just the soul. This is the first thing I need you to understand, because most people only hear half of this gospel. Yes, God forgives sins. Yes, He restores the soul. But what most people never fully grasp is that God also redeems time itself. Joel 2:25, a verse that doesn't get nearly enough attention, says this: I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten. The years. Not just the guilt, not just the shame, the actual years, the time, the seasons you lost, the chapters you spent in the wrong direction. God is saying, I will give you back what was taken. Not a consolation prize, not a lesser version. I will restore what the years of locusts consumed. I need you to hear this clearly, because the enemy has been telling you a very specific lie. He's been saying, even if God forgives you, you've lost too much time. You're too far behind. You started over, and then it happened anyway. If you have been telling yourself that you've missed your window, that the mistake you made 5 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 30 years ago has permanently closed the door on your purpose, I need you to challenge that belief today. Type, "My time is not wasted" in the comments, as a declaration, as an act of defiance against the voice that has been telling you otherwise. Because God does not work on human schedules, and what He has prepared for you, it has not expired while you were in the wilderness. Number 2, God uses the wound to create the wisdom. Here is something I've observed about people who carry deep regret. Over time, if they allow God into the process, they develop something that cannot be taught in a classroom, cannot be bought with money, and cannot be given to you by another human being. They develop the kind of wisdom that only comes from having walked through fire and survived. The person who has never fallen cannot understand the person who is on the ground. Not really. They can empathize intellectually, but the one who has been there, who has sat in the ash, who has known the particular texture of that floor, they can reach down and pull someone up with a different kind of authority. Your failures have not just left marks on you, they have equipped you. The addiction you fought through, you now understand something about the human capacity for dependency and recovery that the person who has never struggled simply cannot access. The relationship you destroyed, you now understand something about the ways fear disguises itself as love that will protect you and others for the rest of your life. The season you spent far from God, you now know what it feels like to be in the far country, and you know the way home, which means you can show someone else the way home. Romans 8:28. All things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. Not some things, all things. Not just the comfortable things, not just the acceptable things. All of it, the worst of it, the things you cannot speak aloud, the things you carry in silence. All of it is being worked, is currently being worked into something. Don't stop now, because number 3 is where this gets deeply personal. Number 3, God protects you from a version of yourself that could have been worse. I want to say something carefully here, because I don't want it to sound dismissive. I know your past has caused real pain to yourself, possibly to others. I'm not minimizing that. But I want you to consider something. There is a version of your life, a path you could have gone down that was worse than the one you took. And the very mistakes that you now use to condemn yourself were, in some cases, circuit breakers. Moments where God allowed you to hit a wall, not to punish you, but to stop you from a trajectory that would have taken you somewhere far more destructive. Think about it. The relationship that ended badly, what if it had continued? The decision that cost you everything financially, what if you doubled down instead of being forced to stop and rebuild? The season of rebellion, what if it had lasted another decade? Sometimes God's mercy is invisible because it doesn't look like blessing. It looks like failure. It looks like loss. It looks like the door slamming shut. But what is actually happening is that you are being redirected, not punished, redirected. Proverbs 16:9. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Even the detours were directed. Even the mistakes were not outside of His reach. Type "God was in it" if you are starting to see this. If you can look back at something that felt like destruction at the time and begin to see a different interpretation. Not a denial of the pain, but a different interpretation of the purpose. Number 4, God is building something in the broken places specifically. I need you to picture something with me. A potter, hands deep in clay, working a vessel on the wheel, and the vessel, the clay, cracks. Maybe because the clay had an air pocket hidden inside it. Maybe because the pressure of the shaping process revealed a weakness. And the potter, what does the potter do? He doesn't throw the clay away. He reworks it. He takes the cracked vessel and he works it back into the clay, and he starts again. And the thing he makes the second time, it has the memory of the first shaping inside it. The clay is different now. It has been through more. And what comes out of the kiln the second time, it is not inferior to what it would have been the first time. It is different, and in many ways, it is stronger. Jeremiah 18, the potter and the clay. God tells Jeremiah, "Go down to the potter's house." And when Jeremiah arrives, he sees exactly this. The vessel is marred, and the potter reworks it, as seemed good to the potter to make. as seemed good to the potter, not as seemed good to the critics watching, not as seemed good to the people who knew the clay's history, not even as seemed good to the clay itself, as seemed good to the one who holds it. You are in the hands of the one who holds you, and what he is making, even now, even from what feels like the ruins of your history, is exactly what he envisioned. Not despite the brokenness, through it. The broken places are not weak spots in the final vessel. They are the places where God's fingerprints go deepest. Number 5. God does not hold your past against you, but he does use it to position you. This is the one I told you about. This is the one most people never hear. Because we've been taught in 1,000 subtle ways that grace is about erasure, that forgiveness means God presses a reset button and we start fresh from zero. And that's partially true, but it's not the whole picture. Here's the part nobody talks about. God doesn't forget your past in the sense of wiping it from reality. He redeems it. And that is a completely different thing. Erasure says, that never happened. Redemption says, that happened, and look what I can do with it. Think about Joseph. The most important positioning detail in Joseph's story is not that he was a dreamer, or that he was his father's favorite, or even that he was sold into slavery by his brothers. The most important detail is what he said to his brothers when he revealed himself to them in Egypt, after everything. After the pit, after Potiphar's house, after the prison, after years and years of consequences he didn't fully deserve. He said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done." God intended it, not permitted it reluctantly, not allowed it despite himself. Intended it, used it, positioned Joseph through the very suffering that looked like the end of everything. Your past, even the parts you are most ashamed of, has been positioning you for something you cannot yet see, for a room you haven't been invited into yet, for a conversation you haven't had, for a person who doesn't yet know that your story will be the one that saves them. Don't stop now. We are close to something important. But first, number 6, because this one will address something you've been afraid to ask out loud. Number 6. God's grace is not rationed. You have not used yours up. I need to say this slowly and clearly because I know this thought has crossed your mind, maybe many times. I've asked for forgiveness too many times for the same thing. I've fallen and gotten up and fallen again. Surely there is a limit. Surely God is tired of me by now. That thought, that specific, exhausting, suffocating thought, I need to address it directly. Peter, the one Jesus built his church on, denied him 3 times with his mouth out loud on the most critical night in the history of humanity. When Jesus needed him most, Peter looked people in the eye and said, "I don't know him." And after the resurrection, Jesus came specifically to find Peter, not to rebuke him, not to shame him, not to bring up the denial and make Peter grovel. He came to restore him. He asked Peter 3 times, once for each denial, "Do you love me?" not as punishment, as invitation, as the deliberate, intentional dismantling of the structure of shame that had been built around Peter's identity. And then he gave Peter the assignment: feed my sheep. The man who had just failed the most spectacular failure in the story, he became the one who preached on Pentecost, the one whose shadow in Acts 5, falling on the sick, was enough to heal them. A failing man, restored, repositioned, sent. If Peter had let his denial define his future, the church as we know it would not exist. What defining moment of failure are you holding on to right now? The one you think has permanently disqualified you? Type it in the comments if you can. Not the details, just, I have something I think disqualifies me. Because I want the community in this comment section to carry that with you today. You don't have to carry it alone. Number 7. God is not building the future despite who you've been. He's building it with who you've become. This is the final one, and this is perhaps the most important paradigm shift I can offer you today. We have been approaching this entire conversation with a subtle assumption embedded in it, and I want to name that assumption and dismantle it. The assumption is this: God's plan for me is the plan He would have had if I hadn't made the mistakes I made. And grace, in this framework, is God kindly agreeing to work around the damage I've caused, to proceed in spite of me. But that is not the God of Scripture. The God of Scripture is not proceeding in spite of you. He is proceeding through you. Specifically through the version of you that has been formed by everything, including the worst of it. He is not working around your history. He is weaving it into the tapestry of what He is building. This means something profound about your future. Your future does not require you to pretend your past didn't happen. Your future does not require you to perform a version of yourself that has no scars. Your future actually requires the person you have become through the fire, the humility you didn't have before, the compassion that can only come from having needed it desperately yourself, the authority over darkness that comes from having been in it. That person, the one shaped by the struggle, that is the person God is sending into the next chapter. Not a cleaned up, sanitized, unblemished version that pretends nothing happened. You, as you are, redeemed, marked, equipped, sent. But here is the war, and I have to name it because I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't. There is a voice, and you know the voice I mean. You've heard it your whole life. It speaks in your own accent. It sounds like your own thoughts. And it is going to take everything I've just told you, and it is going to work to undo it. The moment you close this video, that voice is going to start. That was nice, but it doesn't apply to you specifically. You know what you did. The person he's describing, that's not you. Your situation is different. You've gone too far. The pattern is too deep. You've disappointed too many people too many times. God can forgive certain things, but yours. And then it will name it. Whatever your specific thing is, it will name it and hold it in front of you like evidence. I need you to be prepared for that moment. Because here is the truth about that voice. It is not a voice of honesty. It presents itself as honesty, as facing reality, as being realistic, as not getting your hopes up. But it is not honest. It is a voice of accusation. And the word in the original Greek for devil, diabolos, literally means the accuser, the one who brings charges, the one who presents the evidence of your past against you in a courtroom where God has already declared you innocent. The war is not about whether God can forgive you. That battle has already been won. The cross settled it. The war is about whether you will receive what has already been given. And the battlefield is your mind. 2 Corinthians 10:5. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. Every thought, not some, every thought that contradicts what God says about you. You have both the authority and the responsibility to take it captive, to refuse to let it run free in your mind, narrating your identity, writing your future. That is not a passive thing. It is an act of war, a daily one. But here is what you need to know. You are not fighting alone, and you are not fighting from a position of weakness. You are fighting from a position of already won victory. You are not trying to earn a result. You are enforcing a result that has already been established. That changes everything about how you fight. I want to give you a moment right now. Just stop. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, just stop for a moment. I want to ask you to do something, and it might feel strange. It might bring up emotion. That's okay. In fact, that emotion, that is not a bad sign. That is something in you responding to the truth. I want you to think about the specific thing you've been carrying. Not in generalities, specifically. The actual memory, the actual face, the actual decision, the actual moment. Bring it to the front of your mind. Now I want you to look at it differently than you have before. Instead of looking at it as evidence against you, I want you to look at it as evidence of how far you've come. This happened, and you are still here, still seeking, still reaching towards something better, still in the room, still watching, still wanting. That is not the behavior of a person beyond redemption. That is the behavior of a person in the middle of one. You are not at the end of your story. You are in the middle. And the middle is always the hardest part. It is the part where the character has fallen and hasn't yet risen. It is the part that feels like failure because the resolution hasn't come yet. But the resolution is coming. I want you to do something tangible right now. In the comments, I want you to type, "I am still in the middle." Not as defeat, as declaration, as the statement of someone who refuses to let the middle of the story be mistaken for the end. Because the God who started this work in you, Philippians 1:6, He will complete it. The word in the original Greek is epitelio. He will carry it through to its full and intended end. This is not a wish. This is a promise embedded in the nature of who God is. He does not start things, He does not finish. He does not call people, He abandons. He does not plant purpose in someone and then revoke it because they stumbled on the way to it. And I want to address something that might be happening in you right now. There might be grief rising, and I want to honor that. Because some of what we've spoken about today, it costs something to look at clearly. There are real losses in your story, real people who were hurt, real years that were spent, real versions of your life that didn't happen because of choices you made. Grief for those things is not weakness. It is appropriate, healthy even. But I want you to know the difference between grief and a prison sentence. Grief says, "This happened, and it matters, and I am sorry." A prison sentence says, "This happened, and therefore you must stay here for the rest of your life." God welcomes your grief. He catches every tear. Psalm 56:8, He has collected them in a bottle. He does not minimize your sorrow, but He does not build your future on it either. He builds your future on His faithfulness, not on the perfection of your past, on His faithfulness. We are almost at the end of our time together today, and I want to use the last few minutes to speak something over you. Not at you, over you. Because I believe that this is not just a video. I believe you came here today for something, and I want to honor that by finishing well. You came here carrying something, a past that felt like a ceiling, like the limit of what was possible for you, a history that you've been using as evidence against your own future. And I hope, deeply, genuinely hope, that something has shifted in you today. Not because I am clever with words, but because the God who loves you has been waiting for a moment exactly like this one. A moment where you were still enough, quiet enough, open enough, to receive something He has been trying to get to you. Here is what I want to say over you now. Your past was real. The pain was real. The failures were real. The losses were real. And none of it, not one single moment of it, has the power to close the door on what God has prepared for you. Because the door is not yours to close, and it is not the enemy's to close. It belongs to the one who says in Revelation 3:8, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." No one can shut it. Not your mistakes, not your history, not the voice of accusation, not the people who wrote you off, not even your own unbelief, as long as you keep returning to the one who holds the door open. You are not disqualified. You are being qualified right now through this, through everything. I want to invite you into something before you go. Would you be willing right now to make a declaration? Not for me, not for the algorithm, not for the comment section, though I hope you'll write it there as an act of faith, for yourself and for the God who is listening. Say this, or type it, or just let it form in your heart. I release my past as evidence against my future. I receive the grace that has been waiting for me. I trust that what God has begun in me, He will complete. I am not disqualified. I am still in the middle, and the best is still ahead. Type "I declare this" in the comments if you mean it. If you are willing to let today be a turning point. If you are willing to stop rehearsing your failures and start receiving your future. Because here is the last thing I want to leave you with. The same God who called a murderer to lead a nation, Moses, who called an adulterer and a man of blood to be the ancestor of the Messiah, David, who called the woman with 5 failed marriages to be the first evangelist, the woman at the well, who called the man who violently persecuted the church to write more of the New Testament than anyone else, Paul. That same God looked at your history, knew every chapter of it before you were born, saw every mistake you would ever make, calculated every consequence. And He still said, "Yes, this one, I choose this one. You are chosen, not despite your story, through it. Go forward knowing that. Share this video with someone today who needs to hear it. Someone who has been living under the weight of their past, who has been letting yesterday steal tomorrow. That share is not just an act of kindness, it is an act of rescue. You may not know who needs it, but someone in your life does. And if this message reached you in a moment of darkness, if you found it when you were on the floor, know that I am praying for you, genuinely. This community is holding you. You are not alone. You were never alone, and you never will be. God bless you. I'll see you in the next one.